The legend of the miraculous stag is probably Hungarian mythology's most important story. Shamanism and traditional color symbolism from Asia likely influenced parts of the legend, although a lot's changed over the last 1,000 years. In the myth, two brothers, sometimes described as cousins, see a miraculous deer in the forest. It's usually described as white, sometimes referred to as a male deer, sometimes a female deer, sometimes both. Christianized versions of the myth even have described the stag as having burning candles on the tips of its antlers, with some poets calling it a living cathedral to the Virgin Mary and Christ himself. Those brothers who chase the stag are named Hunor and Magor. They're often considered descendants of the biblical Nimrod or Gog and Magog, another Christian influence on the myth. Along the way, they encounter either people of the Alan civilization or sometimes even like fairies from whom they take their wives. And since the Middle Ages, it was understood that Hunor was the ancestor of the Huns of Attila and Magor was the ancestor of the Magyars or Hungarians. Hunor's descendants arrived in Hungary first and Magor's arrived second. Although they were separated by hundreds of years and there's no linguistic or continuous relationship between the Huns and Hungarians, they occupied the same territory and were considered very similar by many of the surrounding people. So this continuity was definitely incorporated by medieval chroniclers to solidify their identities as like cousin people. Prehistoric Hungarian mythology is hard to get a clear picture of. In part, it was influenced by Uralic myths, and it also picked up some influences from shamanism, likely from the ancient Iranian, Turkic, and other peoples of the steppe. In fact, early records record Hunor and Magor's mother's name as Eneth, related to the Hungarian word for a female deer, but actually a Turkic loanword. Shamanistic totems like that of elks, reindeer, or stags were very common among other peoples of the steppe, and you can see here a really excellently preserved 2,500-year-old Scythian tattoo. These connections can get really politicized, and there's a lot of pseudo-history in there, but credible historians have argued that the stag of this myth may have come from some of those totemistic traditions. Color symbolism of the legend may be influenced by some Asian traditions as well. Many cultures have associated cardinal directions with colors, and white is commonly paired with west, the direction that the stag was heading in Turkic, Mongolian, and even Chinese traditions. There's so much to say about the legend of the stag and its many variations, but ultimately I just think it's a fascinating combination of nomadic shamanism, Christianity, medieval historiography, and elemental color theory that's still in practice today.